Heavy rain across southern England today. Yellow warnings in force from the Met Office. And beyond this wet spell, the question everyone is asking, is the late January cold still on course? I've examined the latest model data, and the answer is more complicated than you might hope. Right now, across southern and southeastern England, you are dealing with persistent heavy rainfall. This isn't a quick shower passing through. The rain set in this morning, and one T clear until around midnight for the far eastern counties. The Met Office warning covers central, southern and southeastern England, with a genuine risk of localised flooding on the roads. If you're re-driving through the afternoon and evening rush hour, expect spray, surface water and difficult conditions. The Midlands are getting clipped as well, extending towards East Anglia, East Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. The contrast across the country couldn't be sharper. Whilst the south is sodden, Scotland's been dealing with heavy showers and hill snow, particularly over high ground in the west. Northeast Scotland around Aberdeen saw some rain clearing through the morning. Meanwhile, Northern Ireland catching a few showers across the far north, but generally staying drier. Central and northern England, away from this southern deluge, are mostly dry today. Dense fog patches across England and Wales earlier made driving conditions hazardous. That cleared now, but with the rain comes another set of problems entirely. Temperature-wise, it's mild in the southeast corner despite the rain, 8 or 9 degrees Celsius. Of course, with persistent rain and gusty winds, it won't feel that mild. Further north, it is colder. A particularly cold and miserable day through parts of southern Scotland, northeast England, and into the Midlands, where temperatures are sitting at 5 or 6 degrees. This secondary area of low pressure is the culprit. It's been pushing northwards from the Channel since early this morning, bringing heavy and persistent outbreaks of rain. The system is fairly quick-moving, but not quick enough. By this evening, the rain starts clearing from the southwest, but eastern areas want to turn dry until midnight. Then we into a brief respite before further showers edge in from the south and west across England and Wales overnight. Further north and east, it'll be a cold night. Northeast England could see temperatures drop below zero. Generally quite mild again down in the south, though. Friday keeps low pressure in control. We'll start with those showers across England and Wales, pushing northwards with time. Heavy showers, particularly in the west. Central, northern and eastern regions should be mainly dry. Temperatures again mild in the south at 8 to 9 degrees, cold further north at just 3 or 4. That trough weakens as we go through Saturday. Still further showers on Saturday, temperatures generally mild at 5 to 10 degrees. Into Sunday, the next area of low pressure tries to get in from off the Atlantic. We could see further showers and rain, particularly in the west overnight from Saturday into Sunday. Generally just a lot of cloud, dampness, maybe quite a bit of fog over the weekend. That could be something to watch out for. Relatively mild again with those temperatures away from Scotland. Monday continues the pattern. Further showers and rain, probably a lot of low cloud, maybe some fog as well, and still relatively mild. 10 degrees Celsius in the southeast corner, that S50 Fahrenheit. Now, let's talk about what coming beyond this unsettled spell, because the model data for late January has been absolutely fascinating to watch unfold over the past few days. And I need to be honest with you, there's significant uncertainty here. The setup is this. Low pressure dominating to our west and southwest, high pressure trying to build towards Scandinavia and northeastern Europe. It's a classic battle. Low pressure in the North Atlantic coming up against high pressure to our east and northeast. Which way do we go ultimately? That's the question. I've been examining the latest runs from UKMO, ECMWF, GFS, and the ICON model, and they re-showing different solutions. Model mayhem, you might call it. The UK Met Office model for next Wednesday shows high pressure trying to build towards Scandinavia, but low pressure out in the Atlantic is stopping a fully fledged Scandinavian high from forming. At the same time, though, that high pressure over Scandinavia is stopping the low pressure going on its normal track. Basically, let battle commence. Low pressure in the Atlantic versus high pressure to our east. The outcome determines whether we turn colder or stay relatively mild. The ICON model is looking like low pressure remains in the ascendancy through the weekend into next week. The low pressures keep on coming from off the Atlantic. Eventually, 180 hours out, still low pressure bearing down on us. That would mean continued unsettled, relatively mild conditions. The ECMWF model tells a different story. Slowly, high pressure takes over through next week to our east, bringing in some really quite cold air from the east. That is a pretty deep cold pool developing over Germany and the Low Countries, potentially being brought into the UK and southeast on those southeasterly winds, turning into a proper easterly as we move towards the last week of January. Higher pressure building, mostly dry but cold, up to the 26th of January in that scenario. The GFS midnight run shows that trough through the country on Saturday, bringing showers and spells of rain, and then it's a case of let battle commence through next week. High pressure to the east versus low pressure to the west. The Scandinavian high gets going there by the middle of next week at 1,035 millibars, getting the wind into the east temporarily. But very quickly, that high pressure retreats away to the east and low pressure starts coming in from the west, turning cooler and more unsettled, colder even, into the last week of the month with showers or long spells of rain. Eventually, by the 30th of January, it is back to Atlantic dominance. No big easterly, no hints of a beast from the east from the GFS midnight run. Maybe a bit disappointing compared to model output we were seeing just yesterday. But then the GFS 6 Zulu run tells yet another story. Again, we see our trough slinking away to the south over the weekend. Higher pressure building to our east, turning the wind into a cooler southeasterly. Could feel quite cold for a while. And then high pressure builds strongly over Scandinavia, up to 1,040 millibars, bringing in a proper easterly wind there by the middle of next week. That easterly could well bring some snow showers into the south and southeast. Dry and cold generally as we move into the last week of January. A beautiful looking Scandinavian high. Dry, blocked, and cold. Eventually hints that we might start tapping into some very cold air away to the east. That is a much colder GFS 6 Zulu run. The uncertainty goes on, not just within the GFS, but all of the model output. Even within the same modeling system, we re-seeing run-to-run variation. The midnight run says mild and Atlantic dominated. The 6 Zulu run says cold and blocked. That tells you everything you need to know about forecast confidence at this range. The ECMWF midnight run shows trough of low pressure slipping away to the south, heights rising to our east, low pressure to the west, high pressure to the east as we go into the middle of next week. Relatively mild, wet, and windy up to that point. However, getting towards day 9, high pressure strengthens over Scandinavia, starting to back the wind into that cold southeasterly direction, getting very close to a cold east. But still bringing a lot of energy in from off the Atlantic, delaying the onset of those easterlies. Eventually, it looks like this might start turning colder again from the north, though. Another failed easterly Scandinavian high there from the ECMWF midnight run, perhaps hinting that it might start turning colder by month end from the north once again. Looking at the ECMWF ensemble, day 10, which gets us to the 24th of January, 51 members, all of them showing low pressure to our west and southwest, high pressure towards the northeast, bringing the wind in from quite a cold southeast. But not a classic easterly scenario at that point. Fast forward to the 29th of January, 25 members of the ECMWF ensemble look like they've got high pressure winning the battle over Scandinavia, getting the wind into a proper cold easterly. 15 members show blocking high pressure to the north, but we are still under the influence of low pressure. And 11 members show low pressure in from the Atlantic with southwesterly winds. The majority option, 25 members, is the cold option with Scandinavian high and easterly winds. However, if you put the 15 and the 11 together, they actually come out with 26, probably favoring a milder outcome. Virtually a 50-50 split within the ECMWF ensembles for 2 weeks out. Whether we are going to be relatively mild or whether we are going to be cold, watch this space. The precipitation forecast based on the ECMWF run from Meteoseal shows showers and rain today, then thoroughly wet across much of England and some parts of Wales through tomorrow. Could be a bit of hill snow mixing with that over the Welsh Mountains and the southern Pennines. After that, we into drier conditions at the end of the week, but more showery weather over the weekend. And then into next week, a hint of some snow. If that cold air starts to dig in on those southeast winds, we could see the precipitation beginning to turn to snow around days 9 and 10. Now, there's one more element to this situation that makes it particularly interesting. The stratosphere. I've been monitoring the polar vortex, and there are some rather fascinating developments taking place. The blue and purple colors on the stratospheric charts represent the cold temperatures at 10 hectopascals in the stratosphere over the Arctic and North Pole. That S, essentially the polar vortex. Over the next few days, those cold colors are maintained. However, quite a significant warming of the stratosphere is occurring over Siberia in about a week S time. That warming kind of fizzles out initially, but then check out what S happening over America, up to Canada, and into the Atlantic. Another very significant warming taking place there, possibly just short of a sudden stratospheric warming, but a major warming of the stratosphere gathering through America and the North Atlantic. That is quite an unusual place for that to happen. When we get significant warmings in the stratosphere, sometimes sudden stratospheric warmings happening over America, Canada, and the North Atlantic, those tend to have the greatest tropospheric response for us and for Northern Europe. That's my own observation from watching these patterns over many years. The polar vortex is being stretched to its absolute limits by the end of the GFS 6 Zulu run. Looks like it's about to split. We've got one lobe sinking down through the western side of America, another lobe sinking down through Eastern Europe and Western Russia. It looks like there's a split that S about to occur in the vortex itself over the pole. That looks like it's heading for a sudden stratospheric warming and a split type event with a reversal of zonal winds and a split of the stratospheric polar vortex. It's a long way off. It's 2 weeks away. But from a stratospheric point of view, as well as from an actual weather point of view, there is so much to keep an eye on at the moment. Not only have we got to be looking out for the chance of weather turning much colder again into the last week of January, potentially bringing some snow with a Scandinavian high, we've also got to watch the stratosphere to see whether we might in fact get a sudden stratospheric warming. And if we do, will it be focused over the North Atlantic and North America? If that's the case, it could get very interesting for February. So where does that leave us? Here's my assessment. On a scale of confidence, I'd say we read about 3 out of 5 for the late January cold arriving. The models are split. Some are going for Atlantic dominance and relatively mild conditions. Others are building that Scandinavian high and bringing in easterly winds with properly cold air. The ensemble spread is wide. That is a technical way of saying we don't know yet which scenario will win out. What we can say with confidence: this unsettled wet spell through today and tomorrow will clear. The weekend looks murky with low cloud, drizzle, and fog. Watch out for that fog, particularly over the weekend, rather chilly under those thickening cloud skies. Then as we move into next week, the pattern starts to shift. Either we stay under Atlantic influence with continued mild, unsettled weather, or we transition to colder conditions from the east or north. For those hoping for a beast from the east scenario, I wouldn't get your hopes up just yet. The classic setup requires sustained high pressure over Scandinavia at over 1,040 millibars, winds locked in from the east and low pressure staying well to our south. We're not there yet. Some model runs show it developing, others don't. It's genuinely 50-50 at this point. For practical planning, if you ray in southern England today, stay off the roads if you can. The rain is persistent and heavy. Surface water and spray will make driving hazardous through the evening rush hour. Tomorrow, Friday, more of the same across parts of England. Eastern areas particularly affected. Weekend looks relatively quiet but murky. Fog could be an issue. And then into next week, keep checking the forecasts daily because the situation could develop quickly in either direction. Upper air temperatures are currently sitting around average, starting to lift from what was a very cold start to the year. Gradually, we re-unraveling that cold spell. However, looking ahead to the last week of January, those upper air temperatures are set to be turning colder. Whether that translates to significant cold at the surface depends entirely on whether that Scandinavian high can establish itself and hold its ground against the Atlantic lows. This is turning into the winter that just keeps on giving, certainly from a forecasting point of view. Multiple scenarios still on the table. Model disagreement at longer ranges, stratospheric developments that could influence February. It is genuinely fascinating to watch unfold. Check back for updates. The models will continue to refine their solutions as we get closer to the event. By this weekend, we should have much better clarity on whether the cold option or the mild option wins out. Until then, it's a waiting game. That is the picture for the next 10 to 14 days. Wet today and tomorrow, murky weekend. And then the pattern shifts one way or the other into the last week of January. Keep checking